My background's been about marketing and innovation. Marketing and taking a product, whether it's something unknown like Sofar Sounds business I started a number of years ago, or globally known like Coca-Cola or Disney, and helping take it to the next level. So from a marketing point of view, it's coming up with creative ideas to get customers really excited about Coke, Disney, Diageo, the three big brands that I work for as a marketing director. On the innovation side, I also worked in those companies coming up with new business ideas and new things that hadn't been seen on the marketplace before. I speak about innovation, particularly breakthrough innovation. I speak about marketing and creative use of your brain to reach the customer. I speak about customer insights. I also speak about building a global community and one that can help build and propel a brand. And I speak about company culture, how to build a company that is really wired for innovation and ideas. One type of company is one where innovation runs through the bloodstream of the company. Everybody is just naturally open to thinking of ideas and accepting and trying stuff. Walt Disney would be a great example of that. So when myself and my boss came up with the idea to put merchandise in a subtle, classy way on products for adults for the first time, that was just that, of course, let's try it. Whereas many companies would have said, ooh, I don't know, Disney's about kids. And that little idea blossomed into a $1 billion business for Walt Disney. So that'd be an example. On the other end of the spectrum might be Coca-Cola, where innovation is hard going because there's so much specialness in the core products. Coke, Diet Coke, Fanta, Sprite. And so most ideas are about selling the bigger brands. So as a new idea has to often come from the outside. A culture that is accepting of it, and a CEO often that is driving the agenda. Innovation is so difficult that you need the person at the top saying, we are going to put resource aside and we are going to have an attitude that this makes sense. And then that has to be distilled throughout the organization, that people are up for it and rewarded for mistakes. Trying stuff, if it doesn't quite work, just say, that's okay, let's try it again, a different way next time, as opposed to, ooh, we tried that and can't do that again. To keep passion alive, I think it's best that there are a few cheerleaders within the company who are charismatic and pushing the agenda. So in a big company like Walt Disney, somebody, for example, like Michael Eisner or Jeffrey Katzenberg, we go back a few years, they were championing new ideas. And secondly, rewarding and making public when someone has a good idea, giving them the credit for it. And it doesn't always have to do with a financial reward for that person. It's more about, look what such and such did. Whether they failed or succeeded, at least they tried something, and making it as public as you can within the company. Not many examples of innovation at Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is so constricted by the bigness and the focus on the big brands. But an example of innovation in Coca-Cola is more about incremental innovation that you hear from customers. So one of the big ways to move forward is properly listening and then taking a risk to do something that a customer suggests. So for example, with Coca-Cola, customers were adding vanilla to Coke, and customers were often adding lemon or lime to Coke. It took Coke a little bit of time to actually develop products that had those in them. But once Coke truly listened and said, hey, customers are doing it, we can too. Yeah, it's a bit different, let's try it. It's not going to cannibalize the core Coke product. That became a big success. Guinness had a problem. For years, it was losing market share in its home base of Ireland and also in other places around the world because a younger generation was recognizing Guinness as a brand that was for their fathers or grandfathers. So how to innovate? Create something that isn't only about the drink itself. And so gave birth to the Storehouse, which was basically a home for Guinness, a interactive, immersive museum experience. Now, a lot of people love Guinness, but don't love the product. So it gave them a chance to pay money to go through this museum experience, end up with a t-shirt, a cap, whatever, a product. And that became the number one attraction in Ireland as a result of focus on really immersing people in all things Guinness. And it helped get a new generation interested again in a product that was becoming distant from them. The first thing about a customer insight, it's not rocket science. It's really just about listening to customers. But a funny thing happens in a big company or even a small, fast-growing company. You become more focused on your own goals, on your own needs. The business needs to double by Thursday. The business needs to listen to its shareholders. And if it's a public company, the city or Wall Street, and you lose sight of the real goal, which is simply making customers feel good. And so once you come back to that and make that the priority with the company and ignore all the white noise about internal goals and internal politics, it unleashes a chance to innovate and come up with new ideas. So for example, I mentioned before about Disney, when we said, hang on, adults like to feel young, adults like to be silly. What's wrong with wearing Goofy on your boxer shorts? What's wrong with a Mickey Mouse t-shirt as long as it's subtle and more equipped for a young adult? Nothing. And so once we launched, for example, that line of products, it inspired a whole generation to kind of wink a little bit at being adult and be a bit silly. And that was an insight that wasn't driven by a business need. It was by a deep felt customer need. Sofar Sounds is a underground network of secret living room gigs that all started through a customer insight or an insight that the music going experience isn't all that good. I was at a bar with a couple of friends and half the bar was talking, texting, worrying about drinking. We said, well, this is not okay. There wasn't a real respect for the performer. So the three of us got up and left the bar and literally went to somebody's house and invited a few friends to listen to music. And we said, can you just be quiet? Can you just focus on the music? And it was so quiet you could hear my friend Dave's grandfather clock ticking in the background. And that was born Sofar Sounds, which then eventually became a global phenomena of people around the world in more than 150 cities getting together in living rooms and other small spaces to respect and, as we say, bring a bit of magic back to music. It happened through two things. One, social media stroke YouTube. So we started filming things early on and popping them online, and people who watched them around the world said, hey, there's a concert where people are actually being quiet and the music's really good. Can I start that in my city? So that was the first thing. The second was just making the experience so good that people were really eager to talk about it. And they told their friends, who told their friends. And then we had a few well-known people show up, like Scarlett Johansson, Jamie Dornan from 50 Shades of Grey, Robert Pattinson. That wasn't intended. They just came because their friends said, hey, this is a cool event. And that helped spread the word a bit faster. Company culture. My first day at Disney, I was flown down to Disney World and asked to go to a giant room below Disney World and look at a row of costumes as far as the eye could see and suggest who was my childhood favorite because I was going to dress up as that costume, as that character. And for me, it was Goofy. And so they size you up, they measure you, they put on your costume, they tell you how the character behaves, they make sure you don't speak. Because if I were to speak as Goofy or Mickey Mouse, I wouldn't sound the same as the real McCoy, and then I wouldn't be real. And of course, the kids believe that you're real. So you dress up, and then you're allowed, after much training, to go into the parks for about 28 minutes. Why 28 minutes? Because it's really hot in those costumes and you're going to pass out if you stay any longer. The magic of it is you feel what it's like to connect with hundreds of kids. You're a rock star and you really understand what it is to be a Disney character and the impact it has on all these kids. And that says from day one that this is a culture about magic and about really understanding how Disney conveys itself to kids around the world. That says that that's the most precious thing at Disney, and that has a massive impact on the culture of that company. Two things you need to know in sales, marketing, and innovation is listen to your customers and make them feel good. So by listen, I mean truly seek to understand them. By make them feel good, do something that brings a smile in the experience or the product itself. I'm amazed how rare that is. And when you have a success story, it's inevitable that people are ticking the box on those two things. And those two things, understanding and delighting, as a cheat sheet for innovation, for me, across Coke, Disney, Diageo, watching Amazon, Google, is the difference between success and failure.